And he was like, "Well, what do you think of Spice Girls?" And I'm like, "Well, you know what? I think the most underrated Spice Girl is probably Melanie C. I don't think people really give her enough props for her voice, the power of her voice." When I started working on Spectrum, I was doing a lot more productions on the road, and it just so happened that I started it in 2020, like right around the pandemic period of time. Coming out of pandemic in 2021, I was spending a lot of time in London because the UK was like the first European territory that opened up for touring, and I had a flat and shortage. So a lot of the album was written in the studios, Tile Yard Studios specifically in London, and then a couple of other places, and also on the road with my kind of mobile production setup, sometimes in Ibiza, sometimes my studio in Miami. Um, what I did differently this time is I definitely collaborated with different engineers and sound designers to really help me kind of update some of the sounds that I've done. I've done like over 50 tracks for this album, so I kind of had to whittle down to the 14 that it is now. And I think about a year and a half ago, the album sounded a little bit different. And I was going to release it with a different label. That just didn't come together. But what it gave me the time to do is kind of say, okay, I've some of these songs I've wrote 3 years ago. My headspace is a bit different. Now that I'm working with these people, I was able to kind of then refresh some of the tracks that I'd done, write a bunch of new music, and take all of my tracks and kind of put them together, kind of listening to them in different configurations. And the ones that came together to tell a bit of a story are the ones that I said, okay, this is the conversation that I want to have with this album. So that's kind of how I arrived at there. Definitely using a lot of in my studio in Miami, I would use a lot of actual synths. Like I've got the Aria system, so there've been like some 303s and stuff like that. But there's definitely been a lot of kind of soft synth production in the sense of kind of plugins that I've used and samples, and I've worked a lot of that on the road as well. For vocalists specifically, I'm really a lot of times looking for what stories their voices tell. So they have a unique voice if they're a songwriter, what the unique perspective is. Like a lot of the songwriters that I worked with on this project all brought unique perspectives, and we were able to kind of write a story together. Some artists sent me a song after I sent them a track, and they kind of came up with an idea over it. But usually the vocalists that I've worked with are people that I wanted to create something because of their voice or because of their unique perspective, and allowed me to tell a bit of a fuller story than if I was just tracks by myself with no one else involved. So Fetty and I have been friends for quite some time, and we've been discussing, okay, let's do something together. He had sent me over a few ideas that he had started, and I picked like two or three of them where I'm like, okay, since I'm doing my album, let's pick one of these for me and one of those for you. Um, the Grinnin' one is a cover version of an old blues song, and I know the original blues record. So when he had the re-vocal, he sent me the vocal with some elements in it. I was like, oh, I really like this. This is kind of like a blues element. I know this song very, very well. I think this would be a good one. Um, and I kind of wanted a percussive, almost tribal aspect to bring to that. And Fetty actually pushed me to take it even to a little bit, like initially I was kind of going with a little more of an organic kind of production. And he actually pushed me going into a little bit more of a tech house direction. And I'm like, okay, great. I know we need this for both of our dance floors. Let me start adding these elements. So when I kind of sent him back the uh the production that I'd done, he's like, "Oh, I love this. Now I'm going to add a couple of more elements." And then I had my guy mix it, and it came out dope. I love what we did. The interesting thing with that one was, as I was talking to my management and my manager, Neil, about people who I wanted to collaborate with on this project, um, I was, again, spending a lot of time in the UK and in London and Shoreditch during the summer times. So there's definitely a big UK element kind of filtered through and the vibe on a lot of the tracks. And he was like, "Well, what do you think of Spice Girls?" And I'm like, "Well, you know what? I think the most underrated Spice Girl is probably Melanie C. I don't think people really give her enough props for her voice, the power of her voice. And that would be kind of cool." So he's like, "Okay," he made the connection with the team. I had started a sketch of an idea of a track, and she really, really liked it. So she wrote the song and sent it back to me. And then I kind of retooled the production. I'm like, I want to take her a bit more into the underground with this one. It would have probably been very easy for me to kind of do a kind of disco-y, happier track with her. But she also wanted to do something a little bit different. So I think it worked out really well that I kind of took it in that direction. And yeah, she was definitely going, "Okay, this is cool." I'm like, "All right, let's take it to the underground with this one." So Chico Castillo from the Gypsy Kings. I've been a big Gypsy Kings and flamenco and Latin music fan, and Latin music is a big component of my sound and drums and percussions. Um, I was actually connected to Chico through mutual acquaintances in Miami. We both happen to be in Miami, and I've loved Gypsy Kings for ages. And what I wanted to do was kind of create something very unique. Now he came to my studio in Miami, and we sat down, and I started out a sketch of the track. And I had these kind of rhythmic samples in it. And he and I wrote. He played the guitar, the main guitar hook initially, and then he later on brought all of his Gypsy King musicians to really fill out the guitar and live element for it. But I came up with this bounce, and he and I wrote the lyrics together in my studio. I wanted to really have that flamenco authentic element. Um, and that the history of that is amazing. And we performed together in Pacha at Flower Power last summertime. In because I released this as one of the early singles of the album last year. We had an amazing performance there, and we also played together at Pacha on New Year's Eve in Dubai. Again, we just have a vibe together. So I'm going to probably actually write some more stuff for him for his project next, which is going to be a little bit different from the housey stuff that I do. It wasn't that they weren't good enough, and this is it's kind of like when you've got a bunch of kids and you got to pick which ones are going away to summer camp. We're going to have the great time. It was more about how the different tracks came together and collectively told the story. So there are some tracks that I don't think necessarily fit into where I'm at sonically right now, and maybe I might release that under a moniker or somebody I collaborated with. I could be the producer on that. Some tracks will come out later, and I might refresh them in terms of sound. It just didn't fit on this particular project. Some tracks I definitely experimented a lot more, and I don't know if it would make sense as Roger Sanchez to some people, but some of them might be great for soundtracks or, different utilizations. So I definitely want to use what I've done for sure at some point. I think probably one of the ones that was met. There were two really major compliments I got for two remixes that I'd done that really stand out in my head. But I'm gonna go with giving it up for Incognito, the band Incognito, because when they sent me the original track and I did my production for the remix, Bluey from Incognito turned around to the label and then connected with me, and he's like, "I gotta say." I think you took this song to a place where it absolutely needed to go, and they made my remix the official version, which is an amazing kind of accolade and compliment. And I love Incognito as a band. I'm a big jazz fan, so I've loved their work forever. That was probably one of the most amazing compliments that I've been paid. And the other one would be Kathy Sledge, "Take Me Back to Love." They had sent me a ballad, an R&B song. I came up with this piano line that became kind of like this, what I call a Northern UK kind of anthem, very kind of gospel, vocal uplifting house. And then she came back and re-sang the song because she loved what the direction it had gone. And that was again another kind of an accolade of an artist wanting to now bring me in as the kind of co-writer or co-producer of this track. Yeah, those are two standouts for me. A necessary evil. Um, I think an artist understanding that there is definitely a financial aspect to this, to the business of the creative side, and needing to take that into account by learning your own business, having business acumen for yourself will prevent you from being taken advantage of in the long run. And just my with my own personal experiences, I've had negative experiences that have been big lesson teachers to me. And from there, I've developed a much more observative business acumen in terms of understanding what's happening so that I can determine and monitor things as they occur and make sure things go where I want them and I need them to go. But you, as an artist, you should, and you have to understand the business side of this thing. Otherwise, a lot of people wind up being ruined, even though they've been some of the most amazing artists in the world, and that's really, really sad to see. You'll be hearing a lot of the tracks on Spectrum, and some of them are really like floor filler club bangers, like the track that I did with E-Man called "Feel Free." Kelly Lee, the Midas Touch is a massive track for me, and I've played it out, and it just goes off. The Mel C is definitely more of like a London UK vibe on the more underground tip. Obviously, the singles I've been playing them as they've come out, but there are definitely a couple of more tracks on the album, and I think that for me it depends on the type of night that it is. Like, I did a track on the album with this violin quartet from the UK called Escala, and it's kind of like my ode to Little Fluffy Clouds from The Orb. And it's very cinematic. And I'm just trying to find the right moment to drop it because in the right club environment or the right kind of like festival environment, that's a killer. So there, you'll definitely be hearing a lot of the tracks of the album. Some of the deeper cuts at the end might be better for a later night, longer slow burn. But I think with the album, I wanted to really paint a lot of different colors sonically with it, which is why I called it Spectrum. And towards the end of the album, we start getting into a deeper, kind of more emotional side of the album. And I think those will kind of fit almost more as listening tracks. But there's a few versions of ones that I can definitely drop.